Oh, it must be a good episode today because I've already had people DMing me being like, hey, have you seen episode 16? It's Romania Black. We're on episode 16 of Apothecary Diaries and episode 40 altogether. I have not seen episode 16 obviously yet because here we are, but I have lots of comments for episodes 13 and 14 to talk about with you all. And I think maybe episode 15. Yeah, I got one for episode 15, one or two. But I've got a lot of comments to get through before we get to this episode. But I'm so enjoying the Apothecary Diaries season 2. There's been a couple people, like I think CD commented on Patreon saying that they liked this season more than season 1. I don't know. I told them I don't really want to commit to that yet because we're only on episode 16, which is, you know, what we got. What is this? 13, 14, 15. We're only like 4 episodes into this core, and we're like almost 3/4 of the way into the whole season as a whole. So there's still like 8 episodes left. So, and honestly, season 1 was really good. And then once we got to the part about Locken's backstory, that's when it like elevated itself to like a 10 for me. So the fact that we're not really even to that point yet, I don't want to call out too many things yet. We've still got a long way to go. But I did tell them that once we get to the end of season 2, I definitely want to compare both seasons and see which one I like better. But this season's had a lot of good stuff in it. The mystery is what gets me because I have all my theories about Sui Ray and Shizui, which if you've been listening to the discussions, you know how that goes. But I'm going to be curious to see if they actually like give us answers this season to those theories, or like Sweet Ray last season was a complete mystery and they just left it in mystery. And now it's like, what do we do with that? So I want to talk about that. I want to talk about a couple things, but we need to get started with the comments. So Ashley Penn 7845 for episode 13. They had originally posted this around episode 11, which I told people in the comments, I was like, okay, I don't want to read anything that could be brought up in like the next episode because that has happened several times this season. So they waited and now they're like, okay, it doesn't seem like it's going to get brought up. And the mods were like, yeah, it doesn't look like it's going to be brought up. So they said that in the light novel and manga around the time of episode 11 and 12, this part was mentioned in the light novel and manga, but it was not pointed out in the anime. So they wanted to let me know that Jinshi knew about the waterfall depth and the cave, which I hadn't thought about too much. I was just like, he just was making a gamble being like, well, we're going to get shot at or we can jump off and maybe it'll work out. But Ashley Penn pointed out saying the area is used for military and training and jumping off of the falls is considered a test of courage. Since Jinshi is trained with the military as part of his position, we've seen him sparring with Basin, and he mentioned that during their outing in the city, about the food at camp, he's explored the cave numerous times and he also knew where the exit was. So, okay, I like that a lot because it's a nice going back. I like that it calls back to when he was talking about eating the food at camp with Mao Mao when they were off and he was Jinka. I liked that callback. I liked it talking about Basin, I always get that name mispronounced, and them training. But it also helps to add to why he had to have his face covered, because if he's been there with the military as Jinshi the eunuch or as the prince, then it makes sense because he doesn't want them to be like, but you're the prince. Why are you a eunuch? It all makes more sense of why he has to have his face covered. That adds up a lot better now. So the only thing is, if he was the prince, then what about the burns? So maybe he was just Jinshi in those moments. Who knows? That part actually is like, if he suffered burns, then wouldn't the military men be like, but he didn't have burns before? I'm sure somebody in the comment will explain that, but okay. But anyway, that does help explain why he knew how to navigate the cave system. That does explain more. And Mao Mao probably was like, cool, glad you know the way out. So Beatriz Oliveira, 9344 for episode 13 said, to be fair, Xiaolon couldn't just become a lady in waiting, specifically to a high-ranking concubine like Yokio. Ladies in waiting are generally girls with good standing from good families, maybe even relatives of the concubine, which we've seen with Li Hua, always picked by the concubine's family. Mao Mao was an extreme exception because of her specific skills, but even if she can now read and write, Xiaolon would never be chosen for it. And Mao Mao is not even exactly a lady in waiting anymore. She's technically Jinshi's maid that he lent to Gyokyo. Borrowed. Um, so with this, that does make more sense because, yeah, they have said in the show that the ladies in waiting are typically from noble families. Here's the thing, from good standing families. Here's the thing, with Gyokyo, the three girls that came in together, the three sisters, are they all from good standing families, or are they just friends of the family with Gyokyo? Because I don't know if they made that distinction, which they could be from good families. But here's the thing. I still think Xiaolon has a chance to become a lady in waiting because, one, I think she has a chance to become a lady in waiting because Mao Mao is an exception. And if Mao Mao is in real good with Jinshi, girl can pull some strings. Here's the thing. Jinshi wants to keep Mao Mao near him, and he only has so many Bezors. So if he pulls a favor for Mao Mao, if Mao Mao's like, hey, could you get Xiaolon a job working for one of these concubines? I know she's not from a good standing family, but could you get her this job? And Jinshi's like, well, I don't know. I mean, I could, but you'd owe me a favor. And Mao Mao would be like, son of a bitch, fine. Like, I could see that scenario happening of Jinshi being like, sure, I'll pull some strings if you stay in my favor. And she's like, fine. Like, I could see that. But also, because of Mao Mao's actual standing as Locken's daughter, I could see her pulling some strings, maybe. But the other thing is, if Shisui is Lolan, which, let's be real, if she is, then I could see if Lolan continues to be a concubine in the palace. Now, that is the biggest question. This is the biggest gamble, risky one. But I could see Lolan being like, sure, you could be one of my ladies in waiting. And if anybody complains, she's like, I'll kill you. And it's like, because I think that Lolan, aka Shisui, has like a dark side to her, the whole insect praying mantis vibes. I'm like, I feel like Shisui has a dark side. And I'm like, I feel like she could be intimidating if she wants to be. And so I'm like, yeah, she might pull some strings and get Xiaolon a job. So I'm not ruling it out. That is a good point, Beatrice. I'm glad that you point that out. That is fair to note. But I feel like Xiaolon has friends in high places she doesn't even know about. So we'll see if that adds up or does anything with it. Now, Amber Sandra for episode 14, this was over on Discord on Patreon. They were like, so the servant girls all learning to read and write. I assume most of them would know about Suirei and Jinshi and their handsome faces. So I propose that one of the girls somewhere has written or is thinking about writing BL about them. And you know what the crazy thing is? I feel like they probably have written BL about Jinshi and Suirei, and Mao Mao's like, whatever. I feel like Mao Mao wouldn't care. She'd be totally on board with it. She's like, it's fine. And she's like, what do you mean it's fine? And she's like, asexual vibes and all. Mao Mao would probably be like, I want to read it. So I fully see that being the case, which is hilarious to me, right? I think that's really, really funny. So I wouldn't doubt it. Now, Lorelai S., for episode 14, says, this is my running theory about Li Shu in that Jinshi looks at her like a little sister. We know Aduo was a mother figure to Li Shu, and we know that Jinshi looks at the current emperor as like a father figure. He kind of does. It's weird. I'm like, Jinshi, despite being the current emperor's brother, views the emperor kind of like a father figure in a way, or at least like a very, very, very older brother. So Li Shu needs to be protected, and I think Jinshi can see that. Why would the current emperor bring her back? Well, I think it's to protect her from something, maybe her asshole family. And I kind of agree with that. I like Lorelai pointing that out. I definitely think that Jinshi and Li Shu kind of have like a big sibling relationship. I finished Revolutionary Girl Utena a while ago, and her kind of like being all like blushy faced around Jinshi kind of reminds me of a sibling duo in that series. So I could see that. But then like as far as protecting goes, the fact that her family as a small child sold her to the current emperor shows that they're not really great people, or they're very opportunistic at the least. So I could definitely see the current emperor being like, yeah, let's just protect you and keep you here, and treating her more like a pseudo daughter, younger sister figure. I kind of like that. I think you're onto something, Lorelai, and I totally agree with that. Cough Me, Otto Hibana, on Discord for episode 15, said, in relation to Shisui eating all of the ice cream, the girl is so smart she needs those extra calories. And honestly, it made me think of, if you've ever watched the series Death Note, one of the characters, Elle, it's not really a spoiler, you get it from the first episode seeing him. One of the characters, Elle, he eats a lot of sweets, like sweets all the time. And they've talked about it in this series too, but the idea that the sugar and everything like helps your brain capacity and like helps you to think in times of critical, gets that dopamine levels up too simultaneously so you're not as stressed. Like I feel like Elle and Mao Mao and Shisui would have a field day. They just go to town. They'd have a great time. It'd be a fun time. Elle and Mao Mao would be a deadly combination. Add Shisui in there, oh buddy. So, H Banana 7, they had 2 comments, one for episodes 14 and 15, and these are my last comments because I know I've spent a lot of time on this intro, but there's been so many good comments, I wanted to bring them all up. H Banana 7 says, when Li Shu was first introduced, she was kind of a spoiled brat. She sauntered in her pink garb at the garden party and snubbed Gyokyo's ladies in waiting. But now, damn, the author needs to give her a happy ending stat. So H Banana kind of has 3 comments that I want to talk about. This was the first one. And I do think, I told H Banana in my comment, I was like, Li Shu kind of does come across a little bit spoiled at the beginning, but I kind of take it now that we've sort of seen the quote unquote full picture with her character. I feel like her, snubbing Gyokyo was kind of her way of trying to fit in with her ladies in waiting and was kind of a defense mechanism of just shifting the negative attention to someone else so that her ladies in waiting wouldn't bring it all upon her. And that's kind of just how I thought of it. But I definitely agree she needs protecting. Girl, I feel so bad for her in episode 14. It just was so rough. And then in episode 14, H Banana 7 says, Sui-Rei was one of a handful working at Jinshi's house. Mao Mao first met Sui-Rei there. That was when Mao Mao told the jealous ladies about her bandaged arm. Now this part was kind of interesting because when I read that, I went, okay, so Sui-Rei was working at Jinshi's house as one of the ladies in waiting, I'm assuming, around with Sui-Ren and stuff, or just around there. How has he not recognized her if that's the case? If she was walking around his house, how did he not recognize her? Because she was around where Locken was, where we first met Locken. So I would imagine Locken would recognize her. But I don't know, unless Jinshi just wasn't paying attention. Or I guess in some sense, if Sui-Rei was blending in with the crowd, but she's so tall. It's like, how could you not recognize her? She stands out, as a gazelle amongst these deer. But I also wonder, with Locken, it makes sense because Locken has the face blindness, which we'll talk about in a minute. So that all makes sense. But then again, my theory is Jinshi is like doted upon and all these women like are blushy faced and like fawning over him all the time. I wonder if Jinshi just kind of ignores them because he just sees them as a collective and he's like, which is kind of interesting. We talk about Locken's face blindness and him kind of not recognizing people, whether he wants to or not. With Jinshi, it's kind of like a voluntary face blindness where he could just be like, I don't care about these other women. I just want to like ignore them. That could be too, which is kind of intriguing, the concept of Jinshi voluntarily ignoring people versus noticing Mao Mao all the time. And then you have Locken, who involuntarily cannot help but not notice people, but he sees Mao Mao's face. I'm just saying that connection, And then finally, H Banana says for episode 15, I have a crazy theory. Locken has face blindness. Does Mao Mao have alexithymia? Why else would she have such a hard time describing her feelings unless she has a significant distaste for emotions? So which is it? Emotion blindness or a distaste for emotions? That's a really good theory. I don't think she could have emotion blindness where she just, doesn't process emotions and doesn't understand them. I think that it's a combination of nature versus nurture, where she grew up in the brothel and the women, like she talked in the one episode about crying to the point where everybody just ignored her and she finally just stopped crying because she wasn't getting attention. I think that that's part of it, that her emotions were never validated or really kind of nurtured. So she just kind of just cast them aside because she realized they weren't getting her anywhere. And she's grown up in this where love and emotions are currency sort of system. So she kind of has grown up viewing those emotions as that. But also I feel like because of her relationship with her mom and her dad, she does feel neglect from both of them. And so as a defense mechanism and a way for her to process and be able to function, she kind of just pushes emotions aside because she realizes how horrible they make you feel at times, and she doesn't want to experience that. So that's kind of where I'm at with it right now. But if we found out she does have an emotion blindness, but I don't know, because if there was emotion blindness, I feel like she wouldn't be able to register emotions with others. And while she does actively and voluntarily ignore signs and signals, she does recognize them. She chooses not to focus on them. She's like, oh, well, this person seems sad, but I'm not going to worry about it. So she's not blind to those emotions. She just actively chooses to ignore them. So for whatever reason that she gives us. So I don't know. But that is a really good theory. I like that. So yeah, I'm excited, y'all. I'm sorry I talked for so long, but y'all had some amazing comments, and I felt like it was very necessary to talk about them before we start this episode. Okay, so we are going to start. Again, I'm ignoring the OP for right now, and nobody's told me it's safe to watch it yet, so I'm assuming that we're still like, no, keep avoiding it. I will see it by the last episode, don't worry, but I do feel like this OP is a bit spoilery because everybody's just like, wah. So we're going to start at 1 minute and 29 seconds for this episode, if you need to know. And we're going to check out episode 16 of Apothecary Diaries Season 2, episode 40, here in 3, 2, 1, and I'll see you all on the other side. Okay, everybody, just stay calm. Ooh, I can tell why y'all want me to watch this episode. Oh, okay. All right. I honestly, my voice is like literally the only thing. I'm not even coughing anymore. It's just my voice is the only thing that's not fully come back. And I'm just like, son of a bitch. But Jinshi's gonna be pissed. The only thing that I regret about this episode is that they did not show us in this episode the initial reaction of Jinshi finding out that she's been kidnapped, because I was like, I need to see that. And I know they're probably going to backtrack and show us it next episode to let us see what Jinshi's reaction is. And we're going to have to wait until next week to see that. And that is so frustrating. But oh my God. So yes. God. Love it. So, okay. All right. Oh man, I'm really excited to see what this is going to bring, because this episode went in a lot of different directions. I thought we were going to see Lock-in, because I feel like they had been hinting that we needed to see Lock-in, especially with Loman coming into the fold. I was like, okay, Loman's back. Are they going to show Loman and Lock-in meeting up? Not yet, but it could happen. It could, but I felt like Lock-in was going to show up in some capacity in this episode because Loman was there. I did not anticipate the way that he showed up and his conversation, which we're going to talk about in this, because I have theories. I have lots of theories. I was sitting here theorizing throughout the whole reaction, being like, oh, I can't say anything because it's going too fast and we're going through everything and I need to go back and rewatch and so, but oh man, so Sui Ray, so that encounter, of course, Mao Mao, as soon as she sees Sui Ray, is like, you, and Sui Ray is like, yes, me, I'm also Wolverine, bitch. And I'm like, ah! So, oh my God. Does that make Mao Mao Deadpool? Or does it make, we're not going to go into the references. We're not going to go there. Okay, so skipping the OP and getting into this. So, yeah, Mao Mao looking at, she found the hairpin and is wondering whether she needs to wear it or not. Honestly, let's talk about the things that are being set up. Whiteboard Coon had to come out. It had to happen. Y'all know that it was gonna be a thing. So, okay, so things being set up. Oh my God. So, now it's episode 16 of season 2. So we still have 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. We still have 8 episodes left after this, which is so much time. It's most of the core, right? So, but however, if we're looking at the rule of 8 per core, we had, episode 8 is the rule of 8, which was great. And then you have 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. So episode 20 would be like the rule of 8 of this core if we get to it. Do I think they're going to wait until episode 20 to like wrap up Mao Mao being kidnapped? I don't know. Mao Mao has been kidnapped. We don't know where she's getting taken to. If it's within the palace or outside the palace or outside the country, we have no freaking clue where she could be taken out of the country. We don't know where she's being taken to. Sweet Ray can go in and out. We don't know. So there's lots of factors of unknowns in this episode that I'm like, what are they going to do with this? What's going to happen? Like, my mind is like a big question mark because there's so many options that they have. And there's so many people that can get involved in all of this that it's like, what do we do? So let's talk about that though. There's a lot of things being set up and there are a lot of connections that we're going to put over here of things we've talked about in this series that we need to continue to talk about. So the setup is in the hairpin. So the first thing is the hairpin and the idea of Jinshi telling Mao Mao about his lineage. That's been set up this entire season and Jinshi's never found the appropriate time to say it. Well, damn it. I feel like the appropriate time is probably going to be by the end of this season. She's going to have to find out. And she has that hairpin. And so I feel like at some point when they catch up and when Jinshi finds her, she's going to reveal the hairpin or something. Or maybe she uses the hairpin to stab Sweet Ray. That would be insane if like Sweet Ray was about to like kill her and Mao Mao, because Mao Mao tucked the hairpin away in her kimono, in her robe. So she grabs that out and like stabs Sweet Ray in the leg to get away from her. That would be amazing. I'm not usually one that chooses violence, but if it's in self-defense, girl, you got to do what you got to do. So I don't know if that's going to be the case, but I feel like her having the hairpin, I'm glad she wasn't wearing it because I feel like that would be something easy for her to have lost if she were wearing it. Since it's on her person, I feel it's foreshadowing that it's going to come back later on in the series and it being there. And then maybe like after she stabs Sweet Ray or something, she's washing the blood off the hairpin. She's going to be like, oh, you carried it with you. And she's like, yeah, I was going to wear it. And then I was kidnapped. And that will elicit the conversation to happen. So between the two of them. So we'll just see where that goes. Right. Who knows? Because Mao Mao's like, well, I did promise I'd wear it. So then we have little Mao Mao getting fed the fish. And we find out Gwyn is his name. We never found out the doctor's name until now, so it's good. He's like, this one's smart. She won't eat the head, the tail, or the guts of the fish. And Loman's like, well, I like the bitter taste. So he'll eat them for. I like that Mao Mao, she thinks that her adoptive father is being a little bit, beneath himself, eating the parts of the fish that the cat won't eat. But I also feel, though, that Loman is kind of like talking from a perspective of survival. And we're going to bring that up with Loman's character quite a bit in this about the concept of survival. So with Loman and his like doing things to survive. I feel like, especially in Loman's story, there's a lot of things that Mao Mao questions about him in this episode that I'm like, oh, well, he's not doing that because he needs to survive. He's not doing that because he knows what's going to happen if that comes out. He's not doing that for specific reasons. So like, for example, with the cat bones and the cat head and stuff, I mean, he's had to scrounge and scrape to survive. We talked about that last season with the last eunuch of China, the idea that it's like eunuchs did not have it good. Their life was really hard. And if they did not live in the palace, it's kind of like the older women that we'll talk about later on in this. It's like they couldn't really craft a life for themselves outside of the palace. They were kind of trapped within the system. And so if they did make it out, it wasn't easy for them. So I'm assuming that Loman is kind of the same thing too, because even though Loman is the brother of Locken's dad, even though he's Locken's dad's brother, so he has connections to that family, he's a eunuch. So he's kind of cut off from all of that, right? But yeah, she's like, learn 10 things from one tip. I love that phrase. Learn 10 things from one clue. It's very Sherlockian. I love it. She's like, my dad is the best doctor in the country, but he still lives in poverty in the pleasure district because he has no greed whatsoever. Yeah, like he's one of those people that will just give the clothes off his back and do anything to help anyone, but it's kind of to a fault, and it's made it to where people have taken advantage of him. And Mao Mao notices that, and she's like, in some regards, it pays to be like Loman, but it also pays to be a little bit shrewd if you're going to survive inside the palace. So she talks about how she's making mugwort for Lady Gyokyo's Moxie Bastion. And Loman's like, you need to ask Guin's permission before you use things. And she's like, I like that Loman is so kind. He doesn't think less of anyone, because Mao Mao's kind of looked down on Guin a little bit in this series because he's the quack doctor. She's kind of judged him a little bit and for his supposed incompetency as a doctor, but he's still a doctor. And Loman is, kind of reminds her, being like, you need to give people due credit and be nice to them. And Mao Mao's all like, Mao Mao lets her lock inside show a little bit, and Loman has to kind of put her down a little bit and put her in place. So I kind of like that he reminds her of that. And she's like, yes, of course. So then, are you going to write? Oh, she says, are you going to write all day? Okay, so I thought he was going to write a letter to her father, Locken, but that is not what he's doing. Instead, he's setting up the idea. He's like, well, no one seems to need my services today, so I'm going to write this notice of things that are a problem. So they're also setting up the idea, we'll get this on here, about the list to all the servants about the hazardous materials, and that a similar list was from 20 years ago, and that those that would be in the know would be possibly linked to the ones teaching the poison to Shin and the others. So now, whether or not Loman intentionally did all of this to cue or clue Mao Mao in on that fact, I don't know. There is a part of me that thinks he did do it intentionally, but then there's another part of me that's like, Mao Mao just figured this out on her own. And I kind of like the latter, because I think Mao Mao, she gives so much credit to her dad, to Loman, of figuring it all out. I think sometimes she doubts her own intuition and her own clever skills, because she's like, oh, well, it's all because of my adopted dad. And I'm like, but girl, you kind of figured this out yourself. So it isn't all just him. You're figuring things out as well, I do like that she wishes for Li Hua to have a healthy child. Yeah, that whole situation of her losing her firstborn was heartbreaking. Even if she has a daughter, I hope that her child is okay, because I can't imagine her losing 2 kids. That would be horrifying. So it's already horrifying, but it'd be even more so. So yeah, she's like, if my dad can look after both of them, I'll be relieved. So we find out the Crystal Pavilion got a new batch of ladies in waiting. Now, I'm going to look up real quick the Crystal Pavilion in Apothecary Diaries. Who is in the Crystal Pavilion? Who is the Crystal Pavilion? Which person is that? Let's say here. I want to find out who's in the Crystal Pavilion consort. Who is that? Is that Li Hua? Is she from the Crystal Pavilion? Yes. Yeah. So Li Hua has a whole new set. I want to double check that, because for some reason I was like, is Li Hua or Li Shu the Crystal Pavilion? But it's that. So same things that are being set up. Things that are problematic, perhaps, is the Crystal Pavilion has older women in the position of ladies in waiting. I'm a little bit concerned about that. I'm not going to lie. I'm like, Li Hua is getting the scraps. Li Hua has gotten the shaft this entire series. She has her cousin that's after her. She had the whole lead poisoning thing. And now they talk about her getting this new batch of ladies in waiting, which on the surface seems like a good thing. They're like, since Shin left, they replaced all of them. They're older, so the atmosphere is a lot calmer. And on the surface, that seems like a good thing. And Loman's like, yeah, it's good to have many experienced ladies in waiting. And so Mau Mau's like, yeah, a lot of the rear palace workers are young because the idea is that the emperor, could be with any of them. It's for raising the emperor's children. So, it's not functioning properly right now. And then we have the image of I don't know why they showed us the image of the Empress Dowager being like all pissed, because I'm like, because the old emperor's dead. The current emperor's decent. They just don't have any heirs other than Jinchi, essentially. But yeah, they're like, they're only one child technically of the emperor, two if you count Jinchi. So there's not a lot of heirs right now, and that needs to be a situation that's changed. And Loman probably realizes the issues right now as well. So I feel like, on the one hand, on the surface, it seems really good that Li Hua has a lot of experienced ladies in waiting. But as Mau Mau points out, they would know about the hazards. So is that putting Li Hua in danger of having older ladies in waiting that would know ways of aborting her pregnancy? Is that a possibility? Is that something we have to keep track of? Well, we can't focus on it now because Mau Mau's been kidnapped. So it's like, well, our taster's gone. Our head detective's gone. Like, things are, it's not good. Okay. Who's Sweet Ray working for? We're going to talk about all that. I do like that Loman, he's very clever. And Loman and Locken, both of them, I want to put this together. Loman and Locken, put this down here. They are both clever, but hide behind some form of childishness, which is so smart. So smart. So like Loman, he's very clever. He's like the best doctor in the area. But like Gwen points out, he's like, oh, well, the tone of this is kind of childish. And that's intentional. He knows that it has to be simplistic for the maids, for the servants to be able to copy it and mass produce it. So he intentionally writes it, like he adjusts the tone of the pamphlet to match what the readers are going to be experiencing. Knowing your audience is important, and Loman knows his audience. And Locken, as we will talk about later, is kind of similar in that Locken uses this kind of like childishness to his advantage to throw people off. And I'm like, you both know exactly what you're doing. This house knows exactly what it's doing. Mau Mau kind of has those tendencies too, where she like geeks out about the Bezors and the mushrooms and the alcohol, but then she like has a serious side to her. This whole family knows what it's doing. This family's got types. He's like, there are many here who can still only read simple characters and phrases. So this is so the servant girls. Basically, Loman's like, I'm going to get all these other girls to do my work for me. As one would. And I like that he takes advantage of the fact that Guen has the paper company, his family does. And he's like, you have all these scraps of paper lying around. Can we just borrow these scraps of paper, that you're not using except to make new paper? And he's like, I guess. Resourceful, y'all. I love it. And Mama's like, damn, that's really smart. So yeah, the mugwort's ready. She's like, I'm going to be ready to go. She's going to take some disinfecting alcohol to the for the Jade Pavilion. And then she's like, something for the fatigue. So Lady Gyokyo has been fatigued. So I feel like the medicine that is being used for the fatigue, we don't know what we're going to do with that. But they focused about the little spores. They look like little spores there. They focused on that. I made the joke that they were just like, THC. We're going to get Gyokyo high with this baby. No, do not do that. But I feel like it's going to come back because we focused on it quite a bit. So yeah. And then the cat was it catnip? The cat made a fuss about it. Could it be used as catnip as well? I'm going to look up catnip Chinese medicine because the cat was freaking out about it. Oh, okay. The White Rabbit Institute of Healing says catnip, Mao Bohei, is a gentle edible herb that is ideal for treating children's fevers, but not strong enough to be used by adults. It is often used by women to help induce stuck menses. What is stuck menses? Oh, a stuck period. Okay, that's not flowing normally. It can help with hormonal imbalances. Okay. Below is an overview of catnip by, folklore and more Interesting. Okay. Catmint, field balm, mint Degato is a relaxant. Oh, it's used medically for insomnia, anxiety, migraines, headaches, flu, swine flu, hives, worms. It treats all that ails you. For colds, flu with headache, chills and fever, sore throat, congestion, wheezing, restlessness. It doesn't really talk about her fatigue though, so I don't know how that works. I don't know if this is actually catnip that they're using. It was just interesting the cat had a reaction to it, so interesting. Okay. So she's thinking what to do next. And she's like, going through Jinshi would take time. So she's like, I'm not sure I want to do that. And so then she's like, but I'm carrying it with me. But the last time I put it on, I had a lot of women like just basically, hound her about it. And she doesn't really want that to happen. She's like, why'd you decide to wear it all of a sudden? She's like, maybe later. Mao doesn't want all of the attention on her and Jinshi's relationship because she's not supposed to talk about her and Jinshi's relationship. So it makes sense that she hides the hairpin, and she doesn't really want to walk around him while wearing it. So it's good narrative setup with all of that. But as she's thinking about it, that's when she goes and visits the other eunuch, which, let me tell you, I don't know if Loman's attracted to men or not, but I have my old man Yowie theory of this guy and Loman because they seem like they hit it off really well when they worked in the palace. They seem to have a working relationship. I'm kind of rooting for them, I just feel like he's like, well, back in the day, we'd sit there and copy. I wanted to see their faces. I wanted to see what they both looked like when they were young, and we only got like the back of their head. We got like a little teensy bit, but it wasn't a lot. It wasn't enough. And he's like, oh, so Loman's back. I'll have to go see him. So Xiaolon is conveniently out of the picture at the moment. We'll put her over here. Xiaolon is busy working with, trying to figure out a job outside of this. I'm glad that Xiaolon doesn't seem to be involved in this because here's the thing. If Shisui is Lolan, that's going to add a whole other thing to this. But if Xiaolon's out of the picture, she's innocent. Leave her out of this. This is between Sui Rei and Mao Mao. But yeah. And so because of that young eunuch, she's been distracted. So I don't know. I don't know if Xiaolon is involved because she seemed to have been kind of, paying particular attention to Sui Rei. So I don't know. I feel like we jumped ahead of some of the story in this episode. And then next week we're going to have to backtrack and show some things leading up to this moment. But I don't know if we're going to get into that. I like this one eunuch. He's like, I know that he's like a handsome eunuch, but is it really worth all the fuss? I'm like, you have no idea how horny on Maine these ladies in waitings are. The emperor's not getting it on with everybody, so these ladies got to do something. He's like, having the young eunuchs on the south side made the court ladies stop concentrating on work, so they split them up and took some of them to the north side. So and the court ladies at the clinic appreciate the male help. So here's the thing. We're going to put this over here. Sui Rei. So Sui Rei. Here's our theories surrounding Sui Rei, because we have to have them. So Sui Rei, I'm sure, was one of the ones sent to the clinic on the north side. Here's the thing. I feel like that was very intentional. I feel like they wanted to go to the clinic on the north side. I feel like that was Sui Rei's goal the entire time. Why do I think that? Because I think that Sui Rei's mother is one in the clinic that was, I'm just going to put the word pursued because it's the most clinical of the words, by the other emperor, the older emperor, and is possibly Sui Rei's origins there, and that she's there. I feel Sui Rei wanted to reconnect with her mom, so she wanted to get sent to the north side where the clinic was. So how does one do that? Well, Sui Rei knows that they're attractive. They know they have a good face, but they also know that they have all of these injuries that are self-induced, or Mao Mao says it could have been caused by the medicine. Whether it was or not, we don't know. It wasn't confirmed. That was just kind of Mao Mao's conjecture that she thought of during that moment. So then the question is, did Sui Rei, knowing they had the injuries, they wouldn't be of much service on the south side, knowing that they were handsome, could attract the attention of all the ladies in waiting and causing a fuss, knew they were going to be shipped to the north side to go and reconnect with their mom, and also talk about the poisons that could be used. So the big question that I have about Sweet Ray is, I get Sweet Ray wanting to reconnect with their mom. I could totally understand that as main motivation, but they seem to be obsessed with the idea of this resurrection medicine. And they know that Mau Mau wants to know about it. And of course, Mau Mau's biggest damn weakness is she's like, you want to see how to make a cool forbidden medicine? And Mau Mau's like, son of a bitch, I do. So that part makes sense. But then the question from that is, who else is Sweet Ray working for? Is it connected to the envoys? Is it Shisui, aka Lolan? Which we're going to talk about. I think it's more the envoys than it is Sweet Ray, or than it is Shisui or Lolan, but we're going to talk about it when we get to it. But if you told me the envoys weren't involved and Sweet Ray was just working with their mother to try to get back at the Emperor for ruining her life or whatever, and for ruining Sweet Ray's life or whatever, I would believe you. I would believe Sweet Ray and her mom were trying to get back at the OG Emperor's family for all that they've done to their family. I would totally buy in that that's the only thing. That's the main issue. The envoys aren't involved. Lolan's not involved. I would believe that. But if you told me that in addition to that, the envoys were involved to try to take out the royal family because they could see obvious profits in that, and that Lolan's family was involved with it because there's obvious profit. But here's the thing. I don't know. I don't see necessarily Shisui or Lolan being involved in working with Sweet Ray if the goal is the downfall of the family, because as we've talked about, Shisui really respects the Empress Dowager. She really respects her. She really believes in her cause and her advocacy. So I would be okay with the thought that Shisui was like, no, I don't want to hurt the royal family. I believe in that they've made good progressive strides and I want to keep that up. So I would believe that. So I'm not on board with Shisui working with Sweet Ray. I don't think that's the case. But the question is it just Sweet Ray and her mom against the royal family? Is it Sweet Ray, her mom, and the envoys that are tag teaming and working together? Are there other people involved that we've not even met yet? There's a lot going on. There's a lot going on that we don't know about yet. So that's kind of where the mystery is. We don't have all those parts and pieces, but the fact that Sweet Ray has been going, she's like the clinic. Shinlu would have a lot of work for the young eunuchs. Oh, I bet. And that's when she's like, what do you need today? And she's like, well, here's the text that my father wrote. And he's like, oh yeah. He's like, we used to copy these all the time. And we used to write similar things in the past, and I helped him all by myself. And then we see the two of them working together. So we do get to see one image of them as they're younger, which is like, oh, again, the fanfic yaoi fodder of these two eunuchs working quietly, copying notes in a library all by themselves. I mean, the fanfic writes itself. Honestly, I'm going to be sad because there's probably no Loman and this man fan fiction out there. Y'all are missing a gold mine. You're missing a gold mine of opportunities. Just saying that it writes itself. There's so much content there. Whatever. He's like, I guess with age, he wanted to put other people to work. So she's like, oh, they posted this stuff in the past. Now, here's the thing. This kind of lends to my theory that I don't think Loman knew what he was telling Mau Mau, and that it was going to connect the dots for her, because if she hadn't talked to this guy, she probably wouldn't have connected the dots. So maybe Loman was just being clever and didn't realize it. And that's when she's like, they talked about avoiding white powders and strong scents and don't pick plants. And she's like, oh, these are all things that once Loman left were taken down, but all the older women would know. It's kind of like, okay, if you weren't born in the US, you probably don't understand this. And if you were born in the US, you probably won't understand this unless you grew up in the 90s, early 2000s. There was a program called DARE. And it basically was an anti-drug campaign, which in theory did really good. It was really good at the grade school level, I think. I was, involved in DARE every year where there would be a cop come over. It was very anti-drug. And I think in the grade school level, it works better because, as a kid, you're very impressionable. So a cop coming, you think of an authority figure. You're like, oh, okay. And the cop's like, hey, kids, don't do drugs and be stupid. And you're like, oh, fair, thanks. But at the high school level, by that point, you kind of are starting to formulate your own opinions. And so an authority figure doesn't have as much impression on you anymore in high school. And I remember distinctly a DARE officer coming to talk to our class about like meth and drugs and things that you shouldn't be making. But then he talked about how easy it was to make it and talked about like the ingredients involved and how easy they were to find. And you like look in the back of the cafeteria and there's like two kids in the back like with a piece of paper writing down the ingredients and you're like, son of a bitch, you're not doing your job. They're going to go home and make it. You've taught them how to make it, sir. What are you doing? So this feels like one of those moments where it's like you've given all the instructions of here's all the poisons and how easy they are. Just don't use them. But if somebody's trying to do harm, you just literally gave the fox the keys to the hen house. And it's like, son of a bitch. So Mau Mau figures that out in this moment. Like, no. She's like, my dad posted those warnings out of pure goodwill, but it helps those with evil intent to learn about those harmful substances, and that could cause a lot of harm. And she's like, most of the workforce, that's usually mitigated by the fact that most of them are cycled out every 2 years. However, the older ones that have been involved with the emperor, they're not allowed to leave. They go to the clinic. So there's this callback here in the connections with the idea that the clinic is this just pool of resentment. It's just this pool of resentment because the workers there are a force of women who were assaulted by the emperor, probably by the old emperor, and can't leave. So they have to spend the rest of their days stuck in this clinic doing this work with no hope of a family or any outside connections. And I'm like, yeah, it's a bunch of pissed off old women that have knowledge about poisons. That's cultish and crazy. So yeah, they would know. And then we have Shinlu. Now, here's the thing. So Shinlu, she's like, should I bring it up? And that's when she's like, I like that originally the disinfectant was meant to go to Gyokyo, but she's like, I need to talk to Shinlu, but I don't have a reason to talk to Shinlu. So I'll give her the disinfectant I was going to give to her, and then we'll go from there. And she's like, oh, gee, thanks. Now, Shinlu has eyes that are kind of almost the same color as Suirei's. So here's the thing. If we're looking at this, is Suirei, is her mother Shinlu? Is her grandmother Shinlu? I don't know. Because Shinlu says she came to the rear palace when she was 10. She's like, probably close to 70 now from the looks of it, or at least in her 60s. So that was 50 years ago. Here's the thing. She could have also, she looks like she's at least 60. So if she came here 50 years ago, that seems to predate when the OG emperor was touching women and assaulting them. However, there's not to say that his father wasn't doing it before. So it seems like there's a history there that luckily the Empress Dowager is kind of weeded out with the current emperor, but I don't know. Then you have the old Empress Shiji. Like, was Shinlu around the same time as Shiji, and was all this going on with that emperor? We don't know. But what we do know is that she has a very similar eye color to Suirei. So I don't know Suirei's family tree, but I'm very curious to know if they're related. They could be related, especially because she has seemingly wavy hair. It's just gray, and her eyes are kind of like about the same color. There was lots of tea drinking in this episode too, by the way. So she's like, usually, you know, the rear palace people leave every 2 years, but these workers have been here longer. And she's like, there must be a reason they've stayed at the rear palace for over 20 years. And she's like, we did used to be young. I joined here when I was 10 years old, and the other court ladies joined at a similar age. They don't hire girls in the rear palace now at a young age, but back during the late emperor's era, he chose the youngest girls and deflowered them one after the other. But again, the timeline gets a little weird because you have the former emperor who I'm assuming when he died was, okay, Jinshi is 19. So let's say he was in his 40s when he had Jinshi, which would have been, he would be like 59 now. That doesn't add up if she's like 60. Anime is weird because they make characters look really old or really young and you can't really tell their ages very well. So I don't know how old Shinlu is, but I don't know if her timeline corresponds with Jinshi's grandpa being old enough to do anything to them because it seems like they'd be around the same age, but I don't know. And so I don't know if the OG Emperor's dad was doing the exact same thing. There's a lot left unsaid. I don't want to make conjecture like Mao Mao, but the timeline is a little wonky. I feel like I feel like the puzzle pieces, again, and I've said this throughout this entire series, the puzzle pieces are scattered about. They all kind of make sense. They're forming a picture, but there's certain pieces missing. And I'm like, I feel like I'm missing a few pieces on the Suirei older ladies, OG Emperor timeline that I'm hoping the series is going to explain. So don't feel the need to comment about it just yet, because I'm sure the show is going to explain it when we get further into this. But yeah, if you've been involved with the Emperor, you can't just leave. So yeah, was Shinlu involved? But if she was super young, then that means Suirei would be a lot older than she is. So again, I don't know. Yeah, the rear palace and the Emperor has all of this resentment. Or here's the thing. Shinlu could have had Suirei's mom, and Suirei's mom could have come back with, you know, from the doctor or whatever, and then she could have had a kid and sent it on. Like, is Suirei inbred? I don't know. But she could have sent Suirei away. The family tree on Suirei is missing, and I need more information, but we don't have enough information being given yet. So did Shinlu teach Shin about all the poisons, and then did she organize all of this? Which, here's the thing. Everything that Mao Mao said, at first I was like, well, I don't know. It's just conjecture. And then Suirei comes in and is like, she figured it out, Granny. And it's like, no! It's like, damn it. It's like Suirei just gave away the ghost. Suirei just admitted it. So everything that Mao Mao has said here about Shinlu giving Shin the ingredients was all true. And Mao Mao figured it out. And the fact that Shinlu could have gone to the caravans and told them what to sell to the right people, that all makes sense as well. It's like all of it comes together. So we have this idea that the merchants were connected with Shinlu, who got connected with Shin to try to poison Li Hua. Now, there's been lots of other poisoning attempts on Gyokyo in the past. So was Shinlu responsible for those? Or the fact that Mao Mao's explained that this entire clinic is filled with women that have resentment towards the OG Emperor and his offspring, and like the whole "it should have been me" syndrome. It's very likely that there's multiple women that have tried to poison in the past, and you can't quite link it back up because here's the thing. The clinic is needed. That's why Mao Mao didn't want to say anything, because they need that clinic. It's the craziest thing. Like, at the end of the day, because you know that Jinshi is going to be pissed, and you know this is all going to come back around. And I think at the end of it, Mao Mao is going to be like, now wait a minute, let's not shut the clinic down, because we need this for the women that work here. We need expertise. We need people that have knowledge about things like my dad does. She's like, we can't shut this place down, and you all have been trying to help make it more robust. But what we need to do is try to eradicate the lineage of the OG emperor, because that's what's causing all of this resentment. We need to get that mindset out of here. And the thing about it is, the current emperor is not like his dad. So the steps are already there to make that happen. But it's just, what do we do from here? She's like, how do I question her? And I love that as the sun sets and everything gets darker and darker, it's just feeding into this. And she's like, oh, she's like, there's no proof in my testimony. I don't want to make these accusations. Sweet Ray does not care about Mau conjecture. She's just going to come out and say it. So she's like, I need to nip this in the bud and try to stop this resentment. She's like, well, if you want to take any of the books, you can take them. So this whole thing about the Book of Insects, I think, is the biggest, like, nail in the coffin that Lolan is Shisui. Because Mau's like, now wait a minute. Shisui had all these knowledges about insects that she read from books. Where did she get books? Where did she get a book like this? How did she have access to paper? And it's like all of the stuff starts adding up. And it's like, yes, Lolan and Shisui are likely the same person. So what do we do now? And why was Lolan trying to help with the fact? Is it because she knew? Is it because she knew Mau was doing the same thing? Was she trying to help her without being obvious? Did Shisui bring it? How could a servant girl have such an expensive book? She was drawing on a notepad made of paper. She can read and write. Why is she a servant girl? And it's like, uh-huh. And then that's when the door opened, and I did not expect Sui Ray. She says, Shinlu, you need to be careful with that one. Now, Sui Ray calling her Shinlu, is that, you know, to hide the fact that they're related, or are they not related and she's calling her that because she just knows her? That's the question. But then Mau's like, son of a bitch. And she's like, a voice uncharacteristically high for a man, but low for a woman. The non-binary queen herself. Yep, shorter than an average man, but taller than an average woman. The most non-binary of the non-binaries. Beautiful and attracting the attention of the court ladies. See, their eyes are kind of like Locken's color, which originally I thought that Sui Ray was like related to Locken, but I don't think so. So then the question is, well, who she be? Sui Ray. So I'm glad Mau didn't freak out, but she was just like, son of a bitch. She figured out what you did from your conversation earlier. So Sui Ray's been there the whole time listening. She's like, you're a smart one as always. Like the time you prevented me from becoming a corpse. And Mau's like, shit, should I scream? Should I throw the bottle of alcohol and run? But Sui Ray is blocking the door, and she's very imposing, stronger than Mau probably. And that's when she pulls out the nails. She's like, I'll stab you if you move. And Mau's like, well, shit. She's like, well, if you kill me, you know, you're going to get found out. And she's like, oh, I'm not going to kill you. I want to end this peacefully if possible. And her arms are twitching, so I wonder if it's a bluff. If the nails are like a threat, but not a big threat, because she probably can't do a lot. So, okay. Sui Ray says she wants to end this peacefully. Whatever that means. How do we end this peacefully with the nails? Does that mean she's not involved in the assassination attempts if she's trying to end it peacefully, quote unquote? And then Mau's like, is this an after effect of the resurrection medicine? After the attempted assassination at the ceremony, you pretended to drink poison and die. So, being in that near-death state for a while could have taken a toll on you. And Sui Ray's like, well, do you want to know what my goal is? And I'm like, yes, please tell us your goal. Quit leaving us in suspense. And Mau, of course, is like, well, do you think I'll listen? And she's like, you will, because I have this person that I'm going to threaten. Now, here's the thing. She was holding Lolan, aka Shisui, in my opinion. She was holding Shisui outside the door with one hand. Supposedly not that tough, because I thought they said she lost sensation in part of her arm. So, was that a lie? Probably. But like, if you were holding Shisui, did she say, if you move, I'll kill you? Or I'll kill Mau? I mean, like, is Shisui working with Sui Ray in this moment? Or was she really subdued? She's like, the book was Shisui's. And she's like, I'm sorry, Mau. And she's like, do you care if this girl lives or dies? And then Mau Mau's like, what do you want? So here's the deal. What they're also setting up here is the idea that Mau Mau went along to save Shisui. So if Shisui is not working with Suirei, and if Shisui has just been saved by Mau Mau, Mau Mau has literally, and if Shisui is Lolan, Mau Mau has just saved the life of one of the major consorts. So she just earned a lot of brownie points in that moment, right? Also, if Lolan and Shisui are the same person, Suirei just threatened the life of a major consort. That does not bode well for Suirei. I'm just saying. She's like, I want you to come with me out of the rear palace. And then she says, it's possible, and I know you'll follow me because I'm going to tell you how to make the resurrection medicine. And Mau Mau's like, shit, my weakness. My only weakness, learning new medicines. She's like, unbelievable. She shouldn't be underestimated. Shit. So the question is, was Shisui let go? Does Suirei know that Shisui is Lolan? Because here's the thing. If Suirei does not know that Shisui is Lolan, and if Shisui is Lolan, then she's going to go tell her dad about all this, and it's going to be a thing. So, I don't know. Meanwhile, there are two beasts in the palace, in the east and in the west. In the military headquarters, in the east, a beast. To the west, the bureaucracy. I love that you have the order that is Shisho, and then you have the fox that is the beast, the grand commandant, the fox in the east. And the political heavyweight from the late emperor's era, Shisho, the Tanuki of the west. I love Tanuki, which is like a little panda, or like a little, basically like a red panda, like a raccoon. A raccoon and a fox. Love it. I was not expecting that to be Aduo. I was convinced that was Jinshi the whole time. I was like, I thought Jinshi wasn't speaking to Basin, because both Shisho and Locken would know his voice, even though Locken can't recognize faces. I felt like Locken would recognize Jinshi's voice because they've been together in private conversations before. So I thought that's why Jinshi, quote unquote, wasn't talking, but it was Aduo the entire time, posing as Jinshi so Jinshi can go off and rescue Mau Mau. Holy shit. That was amazing. So Locken's like, oh, well, if it isn't the Imperial younger brother. He's like, you joined the court for the first time. He's like, I want to have some tea. And I thought this would be a good opportunity to invite Shisho. And so then, yeah, now that we see a close-up with the eyelashes and everything, Aduo's hair is a little bit lighter than Jinshi's, so that makes sense. Yeah. So they go to the courtyard, where it's autumn now, of course. And he's like, I brought silver cups so you won't need a taster. And they have the wine. Interesting. So I'm curious about the green grape juice. I'm curious because I want to look up red and green to colorblind. Red can't be seen and green can't be seen. Interesting. Because they would both look the same to somebody that's colorblind. Interesting. So the question is Locken colorblind? Is Locken colorblind? Or is Shisho colorblind? Or does that not matter at all? I think it'd be advantageous for both of them. Because if you think about it, if Shisho is colorblind, then that means that genetic marker is in his family, right? And Locken makes the statement that the juice was red even though it was green. So if Shisho didn't see the green, then he wouldn't know the difference. That means that he is not colorblind. But if Locken can't tell the difference between the two juices and Locken's colorblind, that means Mau Mau carries that trait. So then that means she could marry Jinshi and carry that trait, and their kids would adhere to what the queen mother originally wanted. So it would keep that bloodline going while also injecting, different bloodlines into that. So, okay. Or this could have nothing to do with color blindness at all. And the green grape juice was just a signal to be like, something's going down. You should go and check on your daughter, maybe, and see what's going on. That could be too. That part's interesting. That part's interesting. So yeah. So the juice, he's like, there's something that I want to discuss. And that's when they bring up, now this whole part about the guns, they bring up the plans, and Shisho's just like, what? A gun? Blueprints? I've never heard of such things, which is a little suspicious. A little bit. Like, the assassins were in your country, the guns got into your country, you really knew nothing about it at all. That's a bit suspicious. I don't know. And then they say the one guy that could talk just so happened to have his tongue ripped out. That seems a little suspicious. And he's like, I wonder how they got their hands on it. And Shisho kind of brings it right back and says, well, that's for you to find out, isn't it? Who knows? Bitch, these two, I like Shisho and Locken having kind of a rivalry. I think that's super interesting. And he's like, well, we're kind of in a bit of a bind right now, so let's talk about something different. And right now, he's like, things get really tense between the two of them. And he's like, so anyway, I was wondering if you'd heard anything about this. And Shisho, of course, is like, well, if I had, I would have reported it. And it's like, he's like, fine. So Locken realizes that Shisho is not going to tell him anything. That Shisho is not going to reveal his hand. He's going to play with a poker face. And he's like, fine. So then he brings out this Go map that is all the Go moves, right? It's a record of the game of Go I played with my wife yesterday. I wonder if that's supposed to be like a signal or a sign or a symbol or something. I wonder if that's supposed to have anything to do with anything. And they're all like, what? Your wife? And he's like, oh, yes, I heard you did get married. Now, here's the deal. We are under the assumption that she died, that his wife has died, right? And do I believe that he would have kept copies of their Go records as mementos? Yes. Do I think his wife is still alive? No. Do I think that he's going to talk about her post-mortem because he loves her to pieces? Yes. So, do I think he would use it as a tactic? Yes. And here's the thing. Because we talk about the survival techniques, right? We talk about Loman and Locken and the people that they care about. Because Mao Mao, earlier on in the episode, is like, my dad's the best doctor in the area, and he lives in poverty because he's not greedy. She's like, but he could make a name for himself, and why doesn't he do that? I think that Locken and Loman, they tend to stay out of affairs and don't get Mao Mao involved if they don't have to because they love Mao Mao. And again, like it was told to Jinshi by Gyokyo, if you love, or by the Empress Dowager rather, not Gyokyo, but the Empress Dowager was like, if you love her, you need to be careful because if you say it too loud, people are going to find out and use her against you. Which is kind of happening now, although I don't know if Suirei knows that Mao Mao loves Jinshi. I think she just views Mao Mao as a threat, but I think that's about to come out if Jinshi goes to rescue her. We'll see. But I feel like Loman doesn't bring up too much because he knows that he's been exiled. He probably has been nearly killed. He knows from the previous Empress how delicate a line that is to ride. So he's like, I don't want to get out of line because I don't want to get Mao Mao in trouble. He's like, I can handle living in poverty, but I know that my life was probably nearly taken. I don't want to risk that with her. So that's why Loman keeps a low profile. Locken does not mention Mao Mao unless it's to make sure to secure her protection, right? I feel like Locken can talk about the Go match with his wife and can talk so freely about his wife because she's dead. There's no need to protect her anymore. She's no longer living. So he can memorialize her by talking about her endlessly because he's not worried about someone targeting her because she's dead. So I feel like him being like, oh, I want to talk to you, Shisho, about my wife. She can't be a target anymore. So I feel like that's why he's so comfortable bringing her up and showing her off because he's like, I love her. She's amazing. He's like, yes. It was a whole week of festivities. He's like, oh, you heard. And so he's like, yes, she's quite a clever woman, my wife. Look at these moves, sharp like a horned blade. The shivers I felt when she played them. Uh-huh. Yeah. He just, He wants to show it off. And I like the Aduo's like this move, I somehow dodge it, but she follows with this. I like Aduo's like, man, okay, interesting. And he just shows it off to her. And Boston's like, how long is this going to go on? And he's like, I have work to do, so I'll excuse myself. I feel like that was Locken's way of easing the tension as well. Being like, fine, Shisho's not going to tell us anything. I'm going to bring up my wife, and that'll diffuse the situation, and then they'll move on. And he's like, well, that's unfortunate. I'll be sure to send a copy of the game record. So maybe there is a secret code in it, along with a book detailing the scene. Ha! He's like, oh, you don't have to. He's like, you don't have to tell me about you and your wife's escapades. I really don't need to know about that. And he's like, but no need to be modest. How about some grape juice as well? Which I wondered if the wine itself was grape juice, because Locken doesn't drink. And so they bring the grape. He's like, I served in a glass cup, so it really brings out the red. But it's not red, it's green. And he's like, it's quite beautiful, yes. So does that mean Shisho is colorblind because he can't tell the difference? He's like, isn't it? Uh-huh. He's like, I think you and I are going to get along quite nicely, and I'd love to tell you about my wife. So is Shisho colorblind? If Shisho is colorblind, then that means that Lowland is colorblind, potentially, and that would give reason for the Emperor to want to be with her to continue that bloodline, which would give her an advantageous position to be more towards the Empress. Interesting. He's like, the drink has a unique color, doesn't it? There are some grapes in the world that are green. Okay. Yeah, and Boston's like, well, that's not... Yeah, he's like, why did Master Shisho react? Why didn't he react when he said red? Because he's colorblind. Okay. Just like my uncle said. Interesting. Interesting. So I'm curious. I'm curious to know what to do with that. If Shisho is colorblind, what do we do with that? What do we do with that? Does that mean he's possibly related to the Empress or the royal family? Or does that mean he's just somebody colorblind that could continue the bloodline on? I don't know. I don't know. We have a lot of mysteries being set up. But yeah, then Aduo. I love that it's Aduo. And girl, so if Aduo is posing as Jinshi, that means the Emperor knows that Jinshi's off to find Mao Mao. Oh my God, girl, Mao Mao, you are being tracked by the Emperor's son, and the Emperor's family knows about it. Girl, you are high profile, whether you want to admit it or not. And so she was wearing platform shoes to make herself taller. Okay. She's like, oh, pretending to be the crown princess isn't something you get to do every day. She's totally fine. Uh-huh. Now, I think it's interesting that she says the fox was such a weirdo and it made the Tanuki look normal. And then she says he was quite indulgent. I hear he's indulgent towards his daughter as well. And so Boston knows that Mao Mao's his daughter now too. Yeah, no, Locken is indulgent towards Mao Mao because she's his pride and joy. And that's when Aduo says, ah, that daughter is why Master Jinshi, the eunuch, is busy, correct? I like that she gives Jinshi the official title because that's her freaking son, and I think she knows it, but she doesn't want to get him into trouble. But Aduo is connected that Jinshi and Mao Mao could be a thing, and she's met Mao Mao before, so it's all coming together, girl. It's all coming together. So she's missing. Is she in like a basket somewhere? Is she in a box? Did they put Mao Mao in a box and ship her to Abu Dhabi? We got to find out. Son of a bitch. I can't believe they end on that. That episode was wild. There's so many questions. I have all these theories. I feel like there's so many directions the show could go, and they're all pretty plausible. It's just, what direction are they going to go to, and what are we going to do with that? So anyway, I'm super excited to hear your thoughts down below. Please, no spoilers. The show will give us answers. We still got 8 episodes of the season left, which is wild. So in any case, I hope y'all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe. Take care. And yeah, I'm going to be back real soon with more of the Apothecary Diaries. Bye.